Faulty eyewitness identifications is the most common cause of wrongful convictions in this country. It is a reason that this Missouri man, his name is Christopher Dunn, was convicted of a murder and sent to prison. Two men who claimed they saw Dunn shoot the victim 3 decades ago have admitted that they lied at trial. They were teenagers at the time. So here's a question. Why is Dunn still locked up? Erin Moriarty is here to explain. Erin, I can't wait to hear the answer to this question.
I know. I feel like I keep telling the same story about this bizarre quirk in Missouri law. If Dunn had been on death row, he'd be out by now. But he's serving life in prison without parole, which is kind of the same thing. But in Missouri, lifers aren't entitled to innocence claims, which leaves his fate in the hands of a prosecutor whose office put him behind bars in the first place.
I'm Christopher Dunn, an innocent man who's been in prison for a crime in which I did commit, who's afraid that I may die in prison.
51-year-old Christopher Dunn says he's running out of time. He's had 3 heart attacks since he was incarcerated more than 33 years ago.
I'm still trying to figure out what is justice in Missouri.
A shot in the dark just after midnight on May 19, 1990, killed 15-year-old Rico Rogers and put 18-year-old Christopher Dunn behind bars. Dunn says he was home with his mother and sister at the time.
I couldn't tell you who Rico Rogers was to save my life.
Had you ever met him? Did you
Never
know?
met him.
But 2 other teens with Rogers, Michael Davis, then 12 years old, and 14-year-old Demoris Stepp, told police the shooter was Dunn. Did Rico tell people he had fought with you?
I heard the witness say this, but the thing is, I wasn't the person that he had to fight with.
While there was no evidence to support the teen's claim, Dunn's public defender urged him to take a deal.
She wanted me to plead guilty for 10 years.
Why didn't you take the deal?
I didn't do the crime. I didn't do it, so why am I gonna sit there and say that?
Dunn's trial in the summer of 1991 was over in a single afternoon. The prosecution presented no motive, no weapon, no physical evidence, just the 2 teenage witnesses.
They never had nothing. Only thing that linked me to this crime was the testimony of these 2 little guys.
And when it was the defense's turn,
My lawyer never called no witnesses, not even my family, to testify for me. I went to trial without a defense, without technically a lawyer.
the jury was back in less than 45 minutes. Guilty.
It was like my world just fell in front of me. I didn't see anything else but darkness.
8 years later, Kira Kaywood, a writer and editor for a magazine called Justice Denied, looked at Dunn's case and was troubled by the original witness statements.
Their testimonies didn't match, but by the time they got to court, everything matched. And so it was clear to me, reading it, that these young men seemed to have been coached.
Her article was published in 2000.
It felt like hope. It felt like hope for the first time.
And then in 2005, Dunn got a surprise in the mail, a signed and sworn affidavit from one of those teens, Demoris Stepp. Dunn was not the shooter, Stepp wrote. Stepp said that he had been facing serious charges of his own and got a deal in return for his testimony. I lied on Chris Dunn to save myself.
He admitted that he lied. And I felt like a kid in the candy store. I felt like it was Christmas all over again.
Kira Kaywood then hired an investigator to find the other witness, Michael Davis. And how difficult was it to find Michael Davis?
With that name, it's like John Smith, right?
You could have just walked away. Why didn't you?
Well, I was there because I believed in his innocence, and I couldn't, in good conscience, turn my back on someone in that situation.
And Kaywood's interest in the case by then, she says, had become very personal.
We got married right here in this visiting room. Held hands in the presence of my mother and my sister Dolores.
And this is a man who could spend the rest of his life in prison, and you choose to marry him. You may never get a chance to live with him.
That's true.
It took nearly a decade to find the other witness, Michael Davis.
I didn't see no shots. No
Okay.
We ran.
Davis, then in jail in California, admitted to an investigator that he too lied at Dunn's trial.
Did we see Dunn do it? No.
Okay.
No, nobody seen Dunn do it.
You thought at that point Chris is going to come out.
Oh yeah, we were ecstatic.
But it never happened. In September 2020, after a post-conviction hearing, a judge ruled this court does not believe that any jury would now convict Dunn under these facts. But the judge also said that under Missouri law, he couldn't free Dunn because he's not on death row.
He thought that no juror would convict Chris, which means that's synonymous with innocence, right? And he sits in prison. It's like a gaping hole in Missouri jurisprudence.
Justin Bonus, a New York attorney, is now working with the Midwest Innocence Project to get Dunn out.
He sits in there. He won and he lost at the same time.
Under Missouri law, this is the only person who can at this point ask a court to vacate Dunn's conviction, the St. Louis Circuit Attorney, Gabriel Gore. Aren't you, in fact, Christopher Dunn's best hope, if not his last hope, for ever getting out of prison, as it stands right now?
I do. I agree with that. This country is kind of built on the premise that, better that a guilty man go free than that an innocent man be convicted. So, of course, that's something that concerns me.
Well, Erin, right now, my life is in his hands. And all I'm asking you now is to give me a fresh shake. So the circuit attorney is reviewing Dunn's case, has been reviewing for the last 5 months, and says he hopes to have a decision by the end of the year. Even if, I should point out, if he decides to file and ask to have it vacated, the Attorney General's office is going to fight it. They've opposed every attempt Dunn has had to get out. So we're not talking about an immediate.
Oh my God!
Because of
my
the
blood,
quote-unquote
my
law.
blood is boiling, Erin. My blood is boiling. I mean, you just did this report in less than 3 minutes. You said they've been looking at the case for 5 months.
Yeah.
You have 2 people that admit that he lied.
I
They
can
lied
make it
about
matter.
this, and he wasn't even there.
I know. I read the
God.
entire trial transcript.
Yes.
Aren't you really impressed? It took me 1 hour.
Yes.
That's how
1
long it
hour.
took.
Yes.
And that included the voir dire. It was 90 pages long. It was over in an afternoon. That was the only evidence, these 2 kids. And can I also make you mad?
Yes.
By when Michael Davis said he thought he saw Chris Dunn. What he really said, when I read the police reports, he said, I saw his sunglasses. We're talking midnight. Midnight. He saw Chris Dunn's sunglasses.
But he wasn't there. So maybe Justin Bonus, we're very familiar with him. We've seen the work he can do. He's a badass.
And the Midwest
Will this
Innocence
change?
Project.
Can he help with this?
Well, no, actually, it's got to be Gabriel Gore, the circuit attorney who decides whether he's going to file to ask to have this conviction.
And what is Gabriel Gore? I know you're just interviewing. What does he say he's working on now? Because
Well,
everybody goes on with their life. We're planning.
Well, no, he
Thanksgiving,
actually
Christmas.
did.
This
He
guy's
assigned
sitting
a
in
judge.
prison.
There's a retired judge.
Yes.
And he has been reviewing this case. I'm not quite sure why it takes so long. And then what they'll do before the end of the year, according to the circuit attorney, is announce whether they're going to ask to have it overturned.
And in the meantime,
hope so.
he sits there.
Yeah, right. It's a very casual attitude for when you're not the one in jail for all those years. I mean,
For so
Erin,
many reasons.
Such an
he needs to
eye-opening
be free.
report.
He needs to get home to his wife, too.
Yeah, he does.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, and there's a love story
in the
there
middle
too.
of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That was a plot twist, didn't
Yeah.
it?
I know. I saved that for you.
Erin, thank you very much.